Our story begins about halfway through the Clone Wars on the ocean planet of Mon Cala. The campaign has ended in Republic victory, and when it was over, Jedi Master Kit Fisto was searching for Anakin Skywalker so they could brief the Jedi Council on this victory. As Kit searched for the young Jedi, he began to think about the Chosen One, and he couldn't help but admire Anakin's bravery and his skill in battle. He was truly the best of the Jedi when it came to fighting in this war, and Kit knew he never would have won this battle if it weren't for Anakin. He was extremely important to the Jedi Order, but even Kit couldn't ignore Anakin's shortcomings when it came to following orders, or even keeping his emotions in check when it mattered most. The boy was impatient, and perhaps that was why the chaos of war seemed to work so well for him. Eventually, Kit would swim around a corner and see Anakin seeing his clone unit back to their ship, along with Senator Amidala, who was here for the negotiations, and Kit would use his acute senses to feel Anakin's heart rate rise and his overall happiness go up as he looked at Padme. And as she took off, Kit would decide to just let it go and trust that Anakin knew not to actually form an attachment. He got to the young Jedi, and together they would brief Master Windu and a few other council members on their mission. And now, we flash forward over a year later inside of the Jedi Temple hangar. Anakin Skywalker has just found out that Chancellor Palpatine is Darth Sidious, and Mace Windu has gathered Sazitin, Agen Kolar, and Kit Fisto to go arrest or eliminate the Sith Lord. And as Master Fisto waited on the Republic shuttle inside of the temple hangar, he heard Mace Windu order Anakin to go and wait in the council chambers. And Kit didn't even have to listen to feel how upset this made Anakin. Kit realized now that Anakin no longer felt like the hero of the war. The stoicism, confidence, and overall heroism were gone, replaced by fear, sadness, and extreme anxieties. So, when Mace Windu boarded, Kit Fisto ordered the pilot to hang on, and he stepped over to the shuttle doors, telling Windu he will wait here with Anakin. He made sure Anakin was out of earshot before telling Windu that the boy is unstable. He needs guidance. Windu wanted to argue, but Fisto had already gotten off. So, with a frustrated sigh, Windu told Fisto to warn the other council members of exactly what is going on once he gets to the council chambers. And then, the Jedi shuttle would take off. Fisto would smile over to Anakin, telling him that the Jedi will only arrest Palpatine unless he tries something unexpected. Anakin was too afraid to speak, so he only could nod as they went up to the council chambers together. And once in these chambers, Anakin would take a seat as Fisto began fiddling with the communicator so he could establish a signal to speak with the other council members. And while Fisto was setting this up, he felt a shift in the Force. Anakin was standing up now, staring out of the window, and Kit connected to one of the council members. It was Plo Koon, and Fisto told him everything, and then he told Plo to be careful. Plo would thank Fisto, and then Fisto was too distracted by Anakin to be able to warn anyone else. He moved over to Anakin to find a tear in his eye, and Fisto put a hand on Anakin's shoulder, asking what is worrying him so much. Windu and the others will be just fine. But now Fisto realized it wasn't that, and in the Force, Fisto could feel something beyond Anakin's fear, beyond his anxieties. He felt love. And Fisto realized now that Anakin was looking at the Senate apartments, and he remembered Mon Cala with Anakin and Senator Amidala. And so Kit Fisto would now ponder a question that none of the Jedi thought to ask Anakin. Why did Palpatine decide now to tell Anakin the truth? What could he have been expecting, other than for Anakin to join him? So Kit calmly asked Anakin why Palpatine Anakin expected him to join the dark side, and Kit saw another tear roll down Anakin's cheek as he asked if it has something to do with Senator Amidala. And now, as Anakin stared out of the window, a voice spoke into his mind. It was Palpatine, calling out for help, saying that the Jedi are here to kill him, and Padme will most certainly die. Palpatine's voice echoed in Anakin's mind, and Anakin knew he had no choice. He reached down to grab his lightsaber so he could get out of here. But suddenly, Kit Fisto reached out, and he pulled Anakin's lightsaber into his own hands, telling Anakin to think about what he's doing. Anakin's face went dark, as he said he knew the Jedi were traitors. Windu's going to kill Palpatine, isn't he? Anakin began circling around the room, not letting go of Fisto's gaze, as Fisto now had both lightsabers, neither of them ignited just yet, as he calmly tried to remind Anakin that Palpatine is a Sith Lord. the one responsible for this entire war. All of the danger, the death, all of it is him. Anakin snarled that he doesn't care. All he cares about is saving Padme, and only the Sith know how to help him. And now Fisto's calm demeanor dropped just a bit as he asked Anakin if he hears himself. The Sith take life, they do not save it. Anakin shook his head, saying that the only person taking a life right now is Windu, and he cannot let that happen. Now, Kit ignited both sabers in front of the door, but Anakin reached both of his hands up, grabbing the walls, ripping the walls down. Kit had to cover his head as thousands of glass shards along with heavy pieces of duracrete rained down on top of him. He was able to roll away from most of it, but now he stood on the edge of the broken down wall of the council chambers, and Anakin moved in, kicking Fisto extremely hard in the chest, as Fisto fell out of the chambers altogether, falling down to the temple roof below. Anakin reached down, grabbed his saber, and sprinted to the temple hangar. The Jedi down here were all frantically looking around, as they had heard the sounds from the council chambers, but Anakin ran right by them. All that mattered was saving Palpatine, and soon he took off in a speeder toward the executive building. But on top of the Jedi Temple, Kit Fisto groaned in pain as he slowly sat up. He had just enough time during the fall to use the Force and stop his crashing down from being anything terribly lethal. He probably had a few broken ribs, but after using the Force to numb the pain for now, Kit got to his feet, and he too sprinted to the temple hangar. He knew where Anakin was going, and he knew he had no more time to waste. So Fisto jumped right into another speeder, taking off shortly after Anakin. And in the Republic Executive Building, Anakin zoomed his speeder through the air, seeing blue lightning spray out of the window, and suddenly, it stopped altogether. Anakin knew he didn't have time to fly all the way to the entrance, so he got to the window of Palpatine's office, parked his speeder in the air, and dove through the large glass window before sprinting through the small hallway and getting into the other room to see Mace Windu holding his purple blade in the air. Palpatine was weakly cornered, and as Windu lowered his blade for the kill, Anakin reached out, hitting Windu with a huge force push, completely catching the Jedi Master off guard as he was thrown hard out of the window, flailing as he fell hundreds of stories to the ground below. Anakin sighed with both relief and despair, wondering if this was the right choice. Kit Fisto's words still rang in his head. He just couldn't shake them. The Sith take life. They do not save it. And as Anakin finally got to Palpatine, kneeling in front of the Sith Lord, he truly began to wonder if he'd made a mistake. And outside of this building, Kit Fisto was flying his speeder past the building when he saw Mace Windu's body get thrown out of the window. Fisto blasted the engines on the speeder, turning it vertical so he could now be lined up with the falling Windu, and Kit Fisto was able to fly his speeder just fast enough to pull Windu inside. Windu had gone unconscious from the sheer force of Anakin's push, and so Fisto turned his speeder back towards the temple, knowing Anakin may be lost, and both Sazy and Agen are surely dead. He had to get back to the Jedi Temple, warn the rest of the Jedi, as all of the other Jedi here in the temple would be no match for Sidious and Anakin if they are now working together. There was still time to evacuate. But up in the office, as Anakin looked to the grotesque, burned face of Darth Sidious, Anakin heard something that made him extremely angry. Fisto had put doubt into his mind about Palpatine's true intentions, and now Palpatine told Anakin that he does not actually know how to save life quite yet, but perhaps they can achieve it together. And this put Fisto's words right back at the front of Anakin's mind, and both of these things together finally broke the dark side trance or illusion that Anakin was in. He looked up at Sidious, calling him a liar, and Sidious's mouth twisted in anger as he told Anakin he must have patience. But Anakin had grown tired of patience. He ignited his lightsaber, jamming it right up at the Dark Lord's neck to kill him. But Sidious twisted away, as part of him had expected this. Anakin missed the stab, and Sidious pulled his second blade right into his hand from deep inside of the statues, slicing Anakin right across his back. Anakin flopped to the floor, face slamming the slick, rain-covered edge of the window, as Sidious told Anakin he is a fool to not think he was prepared for a betrayal. Perhaps he waited too long to turn Anakin. He is far too gone in the Jedi teachings. Anakin slowly tried getting back to his feet, the wound on his back causing immense, searing pain. and Sidious just smiled, telling Anakin the only way for him to keep fighting him is to truly embrace the dark side. The only way to beat him is to use this pain to fuel himself. Sidious told Anakin to use the sadness of his mother dying in his arms, the anger of the Jedi holding him back, the agony from his nightmares, the pain from his wound. Use all of it, unlock his full power. And as Anakin stood here, he began to truly put the pieces together for the first time. His mother, the Jedi, Padme, the wound. Palpatine somehow knew about all of it. He has been using Anakin's pain for years in order to turn him. And so, Anakin did indeed think of his mother and of Padme, but he thought of how they would want him to stay in the light as a Jedi. And Anakin said, "I'll never join you." But before the last word was even out of his mouth, Sidious grabbed Anakin with the Force, slamming him extremely hard into the wall, and then into the ceiling, the floor, back into another wall, until Anakin was knocked out and barely alive. Sidious then pushed the button on his desk to call for his red guards, and when they arrived, Anakin was dragged away, and Sidious moved to his communicator. He got all of his anger out on Anakin, and now Sidious would execute Order 66 across the galaxy. On Felucia, Megiddo, Seleucami, countless other planets, and on Venators, Jedi would be killed instantly. But on Kashyyyk, Utapau, and even on Cato Nemoidia, 3 Jedi Masters would escape with their lives. Obi-Wan, Yoda, and thanks to Kit Fisto's warnings while in the Council, Plo Koon would also still be alive, as he recently left Cato Nemoidia, now flying back to Coruscant to hopefully help the Jedi in time. But as the 501st was being prepared to march into the Jedi Temple, 3 large Jedi transport ships took off from behind the Jedi Temple, each of them carrying enough Jedi to evacuate the temple nearly completely, led by the injured but alive Mace Windu. While thousands of Jedi Masters, Knights, and Padawans were out in the galaxy being killed off, the Jedi in the temple were able to largely evacuate just in time. At the back entrance, Kit Fisto watched the transports leave this planet, and in space, the Republic blockade turned, and the clone troopers inside of the lead Venator fired at the 3 transports. One of the 3, the one led by Master Syndralic, exploded in a fiery blaze, and this was a horrific moment, but the other 2 would make it out safely in a jump to hyperspace. Inside of the temple, hundreds of temple guards had chosen to stay behind and fight to protect the temple, and they would all fight until the very end, as the 501st clones poured in, taking down the guards and setting fire to the Jedi Temple. And across the city, Senator Padme Amidala was in her apartment, watching as the Jedi Temple was now burning. She clutched her necklace that Anakin had given to her, hoping that Anakin made it out with the 2 transports that seemingly had escaped the planet. And suddenly, a Republic gunship pulled up to her balcony as a squad of 6 Coruscant Guard clones, led by Commander Fox, stepped out of the ship, aiming their blasters at Padme. They'd been ordered to kill her. She reached for her blaster, but the 6 clones fired, and Padme closed her eyes, as she knew this was it. Palpatine was making her pay for trying to go against him, but the blaster bolts never hit her, and instead, Padme just looked up to see Master Kit Fisto now standing in front of her, as he just deflected all of the blaster bolts right back into the clones. All 6 of them had their bolts pierce their armor, and after a moment of pure shock, all 6 clones fell dead, as Fisto turned to Padme, saying they need to get out of here. Originally, Kit Fisto came here after evacuating the temple, because it is where he expected Anakin to go if he had truly turned to the dark side. But when the clone troopers pulled up to assassinate Padme, Kit Fisto came to a realization. Anakin must have come to his senses, and Palpatine was punishing him by trying to kill Padme. Fisto would go on to tell Padme everything about what was going on as they got into a speeder together, and Padme would ask where Anakin is now. Fisto said he wasn't sure, and all he knows right now is that Palpatine must be dealt with. Padme said he can't do it alone, and Fisto said he has no choice. But then, his comlink beeped, and Kit answered it to find Plo Koon speaking on the other end. Plo had just returned to Coruscant, sneaking through the blockade as they were distracted by the transports, and he was now looking for Kit Fisto. So, Kit dropped Padme outside of Mon Mothma's apartment, as Padme was sure that Mon could be trusted. And then, Kit went off to find Plo Koon, waiting in a dark alleyway near the executive building. And the 2 of them, Kit Fisto and Plo Koon, were good friends, and both of them wouldn't want to be taking on this grand mission with anyone else. They knew they must destroy the Sith. So the two Jedi would wait together, trying to grasp everything that was going on. And finally, Palpatine would exit this building with his security team of 4 Red Guards and 6 Coruscant Guard clones. Together, all of them boarded a transport shuttle that would take them to the Senate building, so Palpatine could finally declare himself as Emperor. And as the shuttle took off into the air, Palpatine stood silently inside, and he suddenly heard the sound of 2 footsteps land on top of the shuttle, and Sidious prepared himself. And as the shuttle flew through traffic, Fisto and Plo stood on top of it, and they were about to cut a hole to get inside, when a red lightsaber plunged out of the roof, and instead, Sidious jumped out to find them. The Sith Lord laughed with glee at 2 more Jedi to slaughter. And now, as the shuttle flew through the traffic, Fisto, Sidious, and Plo all used the Force to steady themselves, and Sidious moved in, clashing his blade against the blue and green of the 2 Jedi, and again, the 3 blades joined in snarling attacks. Sidious lunged forward, unnatural speed aiding him, his blade nearly taking Fisto's head before he twisted away. Plo now swept his saber toward the Sith Lord's open side, but Sidious flipped effortlessly, landing with a predatory crouch at the front of the shuttle. The gusts of wind howled around them, forcing them to constantly shift their footing. The shuttle jolted unpredictably, dipping, banking between towering skyscrapers. Fisto and Plo moved in sync, pressing forward together, their strikes moving in a combination of blue and green. Sidious deflected every blow as he forced them back with a vicious barrage of lightning-fast strikes. A sudden tilt of the shuttle sent all 3 of them stumbling down. Sidious recovered first, using this motion to propel himself forward, spinning through the air, saber slamming against Fisto's in a shower of sparks. But both of these 2 Jedi were elite duelists, and Plo used the moment of distraction, spinning low, slicing at the Sith flags, forcing him to leap up. As he landed, the Jedi Masters struck together, Fisto sweeping high, Plo going low once more, and Sidious barely evaded, but the balance had shifted. Another dive from the shuttle threw them all into a desperate scramble for footing, and Plo drove his saber into the shuttle roof to stop the slide. And then he leaped forward, kicking Sidious to the edge as the Sith Lord's saber tumbled away, down into the city below. Sidious fired lightning at Plo, and Plo reached his other hand out to grab Kit with the Force, and as Kit flew at Sidious, Plo used the Force to enhance Fisto's speed, and now Kit Fisto's green blade cut cleanly through the Sith Lord's midsection. Sidious staggered, then looked up in shock as the top half of his body tumbled away off of the shuttle, and his legs crumpled down as well. Fisto looked over at Plo, and he gave a wide, relieved smile, and Plo could only shake his head in disbelief. It was over, and the 2 of them would jump down into the shuttle, taking care of the Coruscant Guards, and then seeing that Anakin's lightsaber was on the belt of one of the Red Guards. So Plo and Kit took down the rest of them before cornering this final guard, and Fisto would use a mind trick, forcing the guard to tell the Jedi exactly where Anakin Skywalker was taken. Once the Jedi had their answer, they would alert Padme of what has happened, hoping she and a few of her closest allies can keep everything calm in the Senate. And then the 2 Jedi would prepare a rescue mission for Anakin, who was taken to a place called Tantus, but they had no idea where this Tantus was, and it would take a long time to find. 1 month later, Anakin Skywalker was being kept isolated in a prison cell far below the Tantus mountain base. The only contact he had during this time was with a medical droid once per day that just gave him enough food to survive, and Anakin felt like he was going insane. So, when Anakin eventually heard commotion outside of his cell, and then saw Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, and Kit Fisto running down to his cell, Anakin was convinced he was dreaming, until Obi-Wan broke the door down, grabbing Anakin by the shoulders. Anakin realized this was all real, and he embraced the Jedi before asking about Padme, and Kit Fisto would pull out a data disk, where Padme was pictured holding 2 baby children. Anakin had never felt so happy in his life, and as they left this mountain, Commanders Cody and Rex would lead the charge in detonating the base, along with all of Palpatine's last hopes of revival. The 3 Jedi and the Clone Legions would bring Anakin back to Coruscant, where Anakin would learn about everything since his capture. Thousands of Jedi died in the Purge, but around half of them were able to evacuate to Ahch-To, and the Order still stood strong, with Grandmaster Mace Windu leading them, after Yoda stepped down to become more of a guide for the Jedi. The Order was alive, but Anakin did feel responsible for the death of the 5,000. But in a meeting with Windu after Anakin's rescue, the Grandmaster assured Anakin that he made the right choice in the end. The Sith spent a decade turning him, and they failed in the end. Anakin looked at Kit Fisto, saying that Fisto's words helped him turn down the darkness. Anakin would learn that Palpatine was exposed in the Senate, led by Padme Amidala, and after Mon Mothma was elected as the new Chancellor, Padme gave birth to twins and resided on Naboo while doing everything she could to help the Jedi find Tantis. And now, as Anakin was finally found and rescued, she waited for him on Naboo. When they all finally arrived, the reunion was wonderful, and both Anakin and Padme would keep Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, and Kit Fisto here for an evening meal that was cooked by Padme's family. They all got to meet Luke and Leia, and this peacetime would go on for years, as the clones would become protectors for the Republic, while the Jedi moved on to become peacekeepers once more, not soldiers. Luke would eventually become a Jedi, while Leia chose a life like her mother, and when the time came for Luke to be trained, the Force would guide Kit Fisto to become Luke Skywalker's Jedi Master. And folks, that is our story for today. Kit Fisto story. We all love Kit Fisto. You love Kit Fisto. I love him. We all love him, right? Wanted to do something with him. Wanted to team him and Plo up in the end. That was one of the goals of this. Find a way to do that. You know, he just conveniently is able to warn Plo Koon out of everyone in the council at the beginning. You know, it just works out. I enjoyed this story. It's, you know, Revenge of the Sith era, and sometimes these, I don't know, maybe they hopefully don't feel too repetitive for you, but like, I feel like I do a good job of kind of changing up the middle of it. I know the endings are, am I talking too fast? Slow down. I know the endings can sometimes be, you know, repetitive. Anakin and Padme getting a sort of happy ending, but to me, a lot of these are, how can I just change the story? Because in my mind, Palpatine getting a victory over everything like he did in Revenge of the Sith was like, everything went right. He got the one outcome where everything goes right. So these to me are kind of like, what if, you know, even just one variable was changed and everything for Palpatine can kind of go wrong instead. So Order 66 still executed. But yeah, Fisto, Plo, Anakin, fun story with those guys. So hope you guys enjoyed. Padme featured, of course. Love Padme. See ya. Thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next video.